Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all for attending the Liberty and Literacy Forum, a conference on educational freedom and the values needed to sustain a free society. My name is Winston Brady, and I serve as Director of Thales Press and Director of Curriculum at Thales Academy, and it is my joy to welcome you to our campus today. The program in your folder contains a schedule for today's events with our 3 panels, along with a new book by Anthony Esolen entitled The Classical Catechism. We hope you will enjoy this book along with the others you will receive throughout the day. Between each session, we'll have a 15-minute coffee break outside the main lobby, as well as Q&A following each panel. At the beginning of each section, I'll provide an introduction to each panel's speakers and its themes. As we begin our day together, I want to do 2 things: thank our sponsors and present a brief overview of liberty and literacy. First, thank you to our sponsors, the Liberty Fund, who donated books for our attendees, the Acton Institute, the Goldwater Institute, and the Classic Learning Test, with a special word about these 2 groups. The Goldwater Institute is pleased to support the Thales Liberty and Literacy Forum as an organization that works nationally to advance school choice, parental rights, and civic education. We are grateful for the efforts of Thales and those participating today. We encourage attendees to speak to our team about the content and resources we have produced for teachers, families, and education leaders alike, ranging from a side-by-side comparison of U.S. textbook narratives of Howard Zinn and Wilford McClay to an essay and video scholarship for students to paid teacher workshops in U.S. history. And the CLT, or the Classic Learning Test, which exists to reconnect knowledge and virtue by providing meaningful assessments and connections to seekers of truth, goodness, and beauty. Standardized tests should leave students feeling inspired and enriched while equipping them to pursue their goals. That's why CLT's assessments for grades 3 through 12 feature beautiful and meaningful content in addition to assessing traditional academic skills. I also want to thank our speakers, Amy Wax of the University of Pennsylvania, Luke Rosiak of the Daily Wire, Clifford Humphrey of the Florida Department of Education for traveling here to speak with us today, and Ray Nothstein of American Habits, Zach Palmer of Thales Academy Apex, and Patrick Holbrook of Carey Christian School. And I especially want to thank our founder, Robert Luddy, whose leadership and vision for a private school offering the highest quality education at the lowest possible price ultimately produced Thales. I have many more things to say concerning Robert, hereafter Bob's leadership in making such an education possible. But first, let's discuss liberty and literacy and the significance behind a truly liberal education. Now, the word liberal comes from the Latin libertas. And within the word libertas, and can we all just say that? That word is amazing, okay? So libertas. All right. I'm a teacher of middle school students, and etymologies is just kind of my thing. So within the word libertas, though, is the word liber, which just means book, like the word library. And in brief, there's all the connection you need between education and freedom. The Romans and leaders in the early church used the word liberal to refer to 7 liberal arts: the trivium, or the 3 ways of grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and the quadrivium, or the 4 ways of geometry, arithmetic, music, and astronomy. These subjects or ways form the coursework for education throughout the Middle Ages. The ways of grammar, logic, and rhetoric taught students how to think and write, while the quadrivium helped students comprehend truth and study everything from simple shapes to the highest heavens. Now, these arts were called liberal because in reality, they liberate students. They free an individual from ignorance and help that individual learn how to think. An education grounded thus in the liberal arts prepares students to enjoy this freedom rightly, since these skills allow students to think through complex issues and to find happiness in virtue instead of being enslaved to their vices. These arts enable a person to live free without being subject to manipulation from unscrupulous men who would persuade them to go down the wide and easy road that leads to destruction. For if you cannot read or reason for yourself, you're liable to believe whatever your society's leaders tell you, and good luck with that one. And so it is a civilization-ending tragedy that American students are increasingly incapable of reading simple books and even completing simple math. In 2024, the National Assessment of Educational Progress issued the nation's report card and reported 31% of 4th graders and 30% of 8th graders are proficient in reading. And there's Ivy League professors reporting students cannot and will not finish books assigned to them in class for they struggle to understand texts of any complexity or significance. I also found out yesterday morning that remedial algebra classes are being offered at Harvard. Sign me up. And while everyone worries about AI and ChatGPT, the most dangerous threat AI poses is not Skynet. It's to create a world where someone can be functionally illiterate and yet be okay because they have access to a smartphone and voice recognition services. But all is not lost. Everyday people, right here, right now, have a profound opportunity to right the ship and stop these disturbing trends. Such people helped found Thales Academy. In 2006, a group of parents asked Bob for his help in founding a new kind of school. At the time, Bob owned a kitchen equipment company, but he offered the best resource he had, his time and his office space, opening up a wing at his corporate headquarters for classes of kindergartners and first graders to form what would be the first class at Thales Academy. Since then, Bob has remained active in operations at Thales, investigating curriculum to teach reading and math fluency, and speaking at a wide variety of events concerning the enduring value of a classical education. The problem of education and possible civilizational decline seem insurmountable at times, but I remember remarks that Bob made at what I think is the very first faculty meeting that I ever attended back in 2011. Thales at the time had only 150 students, but if those kids got the best education that teachers could deliver, those kids could impact their families and whatever institutions they interacted with in ways that we could only dream of. Direct quote. Bob, I want to personally thank you for making this kind of school possible, one where teachers who just want to teach have the freedom to pour into their students everything good, true, and beautiful. Thales Press, the part of Thales that's organizing and hosting this conference, has grown out of Bob's philanthropic vision to create a school that would preserve and promote many of the freedoms Bob grew up with, but are fast dwindling away as quickly as our math and reading scores are declining. Given the profound responsibility of teaching reading, Thales Press is creating videos and other materials on a time-tested method of teaching phonics called direct instruction. DI begins with phonics, carefully equating students with sounds of letters while guiding them through the purposeful repetition of key pieces of information to help students commit it to mastery. For upper grade levels, once students can read, it's imperative they read the very best books, those books that molded the minds of history's greatest leaders and thinkers, and which formed the bedrock of classical education. To that end, whatever materials Thales Press creates will be available for free online via our website with free digital downloads and physical books available for purchase through Amazon. These works include annotated copies of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar and Plato's Dialogues, a multitude of primary source readers, and large-scale history curriculum going from the Sumerians to the fall of the Roman Empire. Two books I would like to highlight strike at the heart of classical education. We have a new writing book called Right in the Middle, designed for teaching the steps of the writing process to middle school students. Its author, Elizabeth Jaton, is available here today for questions during the breaks. We also want to highlight our fundamentals series, teaching the basics of engineering, plumbing, electronics, woodworking, even beekeeping. These books help students develop skills they'll need to live as responsible and fully formed adults, capable of not only changing the world, but also changing a light bulb or fixing a toilet. Here, our model is the Apostle Paul as a tent maker and Socrates as a stone cutter, men who could work with their hands in addition to cultivating virtue and wisdom. For that is the goal of a classical education, that students could choose what is good and are such capable speakers and writers, they could persuade others to choose what is good too. And with that, I want to introduce our first two speakers for today, individuals who also believe in these good and noble aims and have spent their lives laboring to stop the decline of American culture through good, sound, content-rich education. Bob Luddy, founder of Thales Academy, and Professor Amy Wax of the University of Pennsylvania. Bob Luddy is the founder and chairman of Thales Academy, Thales College, Franklin Academy, St. Thomas More, and he's the founder and president of Captive Air Systems, North America's leading manufacturer of commercial kitchen ventilation equipment and a quickly growing manufacturer of commercial and industrial HVAC systems. Following Professor Wax, Bob will speak on school leadership and virtue and how normal, everyday people can take real steps to establish and lead new schools. Our first speaker, though, is Professor Amy Wax, the Robert Mundheim Professor of Law at the University of Pennsylvania Law School. I include her title and institution here because the university tried to remove these accolades from her because she criticized DEI policies and vocally supported traditional views on marriage and culture. Professor Matt Wax may be the most highly respected and distinguished individual to be canceled, or at least they've tried to cancel her, with her case being summarized as a canary in the coal mine for academic freedom as she engages in litigation with Penn over her teaching responsibilities. Professor Wax, thank you for your courage and your conviction and standing up in support of what is good, true, and beautiful. And thank you so much for traveling here today and speaking with our audience about school choice policies and what good and noble outcomes can arise if parents have greater freedom and resources to send their children to the school of their choice. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Amy Wax to the stage.